My name's Jay Smith, one of the co-founders of Mind Your Business, which is one of the spin-outs from Durham University, and it has been mentioned a couple of times as we've sort of gone through today. And so hopefully what I talk about this afternoon will resonate with some of the stuff that you've already heard. Now, at Mind Your Business, what we hope makes us different is that we really understand that, certainly in smaller businesses, the business and the business owner are very often one and the same thing. And what you can't do is impact on one of them and not expect to have an impact on the other. When the business is well, the person is well. When the person's unwell, the business can very quickly become unwell too. And that's that psychological relationship that you have with your business. Now, the way you relate to your business is very different to how other people relate to your business, your staff, your colleagues, because it's your thing, isn't it? You've made that. That's your baby. You love it in a way, a bit like your child, isn't it? You love your child in a way very different to how everybody else loves your child. No matter how awful your child is, it's still yours and you love it and you want to nurture it. And we understand that you're all very unique. You all have different things. You all want different things in terms of success. Your businesses are very different. Even businesses that do the same thing do them very differently because the people running them are different people. And therefore, there's no one size fits all. And despite all of the great support networks out there, all of the great business support organizations that are out there, what we can't do is have a one size fits all solution and try and make the business and the business owner fit the solution. What we need to do is try and get the solution to fit the business and the business owner. And hopefully that's what we want to do. We want to see the business owners grow, we want to see the businesses grow, and we want to see the economy in the region grow, but we want to see it grow safely. What we don't want to do, as we've heard a number of times today, is see businesses die because the business owner has burnt out and just can't go on any longer, or feel as though they can't go on any longer. Now, despite the black shirt, I'm not the Grim Reaper of growth, okay? But what we cannot do is just keep sleepwalking forward and ignoring the research, the statistics, and the sort of evidence that's out there. When it comes back to that sort of traditional business support and offering it, what is sometimes happening is people are taking off-the-shelf solutions and trying to make it fit entrepreneurs and business owners. I'll give you an example. I spoke to a business support organisation, which will remain nameless, and said I was having a tough time personally. And so they offered me the opportunity to log on to a half-hour video of mental health awareness, because that would sort me out. When I said that's kind of not what I'm after, that's more like for onboarding staff in a traditional workplace, they said, you're right. What you need is our mental health for managers webinar. And when I explained I'm not the manager, they said, well, what are you then? I said, well, I'm the owner. Well, is that not the same thing? And that sort of went on. In the end, we didn't watch any videos or go to any courses, but that's a different story. So I think the key message is that despite all of the good stuff that's out there, we can do better. And at Mind Your Business, we are committed to do better for our entrepreneurs, our businesses, and the region. I have a cunning plan. So cunning, I can use it to make money. So that by this time next year, Rodney, everyone's got Rodney out there, we'll be millionaires. Now, I'm sure some of you will have had that thought, and some of us have actually gone on to try and make it work. Not quite there yet with the millionaire bit, but we're on track. And when you tell your family and friends about your great idea, that's amazing, they said. You'll be great, they said. I would buy that off you every day of the week, they said. And you know why? Because your family and friends are too kind to tell you you're a lunatic. And they're trying to distract you from the fact that within a year, a lot of businesses die. Within 5 years, many more are deceased. They're trying to take you away from the grim statistics that business ownership has associated with it. Through our research, we found that as an entrepreneur, a business owner, you are 30% more likely to experience depression than those that don't engage in entrepreneurial activity. And it was similarly grim reading for things like stress and anxiety, etc. So what are the costs? Well, Deloitte's report each year suggests that the cost to the economy of not managing mental health in business is over £100 billion a year. The good news is the return on investment for health and wellbeing interventions is about 5 to 1. So from a purely financial sense, it makes sense to invest in the health and wellbeing of businesses, business owners and their staff. that's before you start looking at the moral and legal obligations that come with it too. Now, thankfully, as well as having our crazy idea, there are a gazillion business birthing pools, incubators, accelerators, launch pads, leap pads, jump pads, whatever you want to call them. They're all out there and they all tell you how to run your business. And again, very, very useful, teaching you all of the practical things you need to know. Social media, marketing, tax, networking. They tell me all that. That's one thing I can do. The rest of it I don't do, but I do networking now. So all of these things, and again, not knocking it, it's really useful and we do need those tasks. But just because I've been on a webinar on how to do marketing doesn't necessarily make me good at marketing. And there might be some things I have to accept that I'm pretty crap at. And that's back to what something I mentioned earlier on. It's about understanding what you need to outsource and what you need to try and do yourself, if indeed you can do it. But you'll also get a lot of encouragement because some business support organisations, they are marked on how many people they sign up. So they will tell you, you've got a great idea. And it'll all be very, very positive. And I think what we end up doing is creating this rose-tinted vision. Back to, I'm not the Grim Reaper, I do like it. But we can be guilty of creating a rose-tinted vision of what business ownership looks like. And what we don't do is focus on, maybe it's the reality too much. We can very easily fall into the trap of thinking that in 2 years' time, I'll be in my chauffeur-driven Rolls-Royce going to the Gherkin after selling a couple of rolls of sellotape in the market in the morning. It's not like that. You're stuck in your mum and dad's spare bedroom 20 hours a day, 7 days a week with an old-fashioned laptop. That doesn't really work. And when the tough times come along, the business support organisations, again, they can put you on another webinar, even though the last one clearly didn't work. And when it comes to me, if my health is deteriorating, I'm getting overwhelmed, I'm having a really tough time, then maybe I can get a gym pass and go and do the downward dog to some whale music, because that's going to make me better. It's going to make my business better, isn't it? Right? Wrong. Business ownership is an extreme occupation, as Pablo mentioned earlier on. It requires a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, and a lot of self-belief. And when things get tough and that self-belief starts to be eroded, then that's when your self-worth starts to be deteriorated as well. Now, the Mind Your Business story, that starts back in 2022. I can't remember how it started. I think, Pablo, you must have phoned me and conned me into it, told me there was a free lunch or something, and I came along. But it started back with a research team from Durham University who had identified that there wasn't a huge amount of research and evidence on the impact of entrepreneurship and business ownership on a person's health and well-being. So not only was the area of research quite unique, but also the research team. What was pulled together was a team of academics, psychologists, and business owners from across the region. What I like to say is a nice blend of academics and pracademics, so we can sort of keep it real. I'm not an academic, by the way, as you can probably tell. So that's how the sort of team came together. As like we heard from Jonathan earlier on, because I'm sure you've all heard it. In theory, if you do this, your profits will grow. Hypothetically, if you do that, you will generate more leads. And then that thing called the real world and human beings get involved in it and your plans all go all over the place. So by having that blended team really made the research, I found, very balanced, very level. I'm able to offer sort of views from the different sort of people who had an interest in it. The outcome of that was, after a year of research, the paper, The Deterioration of Self-Worth in Entrepreneurs, was published. Pablo sent it off to America, to a conference with around 1,000 other papers on the similar subjects of entrepreneurism. And we managed to win the award for the best piece of academic research linked to entrepreneurship in the world. Yeah, good. So it's not just Jeremy Clarkson that can do that. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like on Top Gear now. So what did that mean? Well, what that meant was, not only did we think it was important, but the wider entrepreneurial community thought that what we found and what we were talking about was important too. So what did we find? Well, we found that, particularly at the point of growth, entrepreneurs' self-worth can start to diminish for a number of reasons. I'm just going to touch on 3 of the main reasons from the paper. The first one was around purpose. If you cast your sort of mind back to earlier on, we were talking about your why. We all start a business for a reason. whatever it might be. Spend more time with the family, to sell your products at a reasonable price for your customers, or to offer a really intimate experience for your clients. But as your business grows, all of a sudden you find that you're not selling your product at a reasonable rate. You're selling it for maximum profit because that's what your business advisor has told you to do. That's what your investor insists you do. That's what it said on that video you watched on YouTube you had to do. So you've started to drift away from your values. You've started to drift away from your sort of purpose and why you set your business up. You know, your business might be massive now, lots of people, lots of sites, and you can no longer offer that very intimate service you wanted to offer because you're distracted doing other stuff. So your purpose and your sort of reason why starts to be skewed a little bit. Worst case scenario, you have now become somebody else's KPI. You're growing because somebody else has told you should, rather than because you want to. And that can have a massive psychological impact on you. Second area was around autonomy and control. And there's lots of evidence out there about the links between stress and control and how stressful it can be, a loss of control. But as we grow, we might bring in a business partner, we might bring in a manager, we might bring in more members of staff. And when we first start our business, we're all there, aren't we? I'm doing this so I can decide what goes on. I get to decide when I work, who I work with, and what I do. And 2 years in, you think, no, I don't. I have to work with who's got the money. I've got to work with when they say I need to work. And you're not doing it. Again, you've lost control a little bit. In the early days, when you're making all the decisions, if you're not well, there's a real possibility you will make a bad decision. But if you make a bad decision in the early days, only you have to live with the consequences of it. If I've now got a big company and I make a bad decision because I'm not well, it's not just me. What about my staff? What about their families? Worse still, what if it's my managers that are making bad decisions? Remember, this is my baby, and they're making decisions that I don't like about my business. So again, what these staff, that relationship that your staff and your managers have with your business is very different to the one you do. If the business has a couple of bad weeks, generally, as long as your manager and your staff are getting paid, they probably don't care. They probably don't even notice. But they don't see the emotional toll that takes on you as the business owner. And then the final one was achievement. You start to lose your sense of achievement. You're not doing what you thought you were going to do. You're not a millionaire. You haven't got a chauffeur-driven Rolls Royce. Things aren't panning out how you thought they would. You've now got a manager who's either on the sick or turning up and doing things that you don't quite agree with and causing you a whole load of HR issues. And ultimately, this grand vision you had when you started your business 2 years ago isn't happening the way you thought. And you end up sad because it's not working out the way you thought it was. So, to try and cheer yourself up, you jump on social media to see how everybody else of your business accelerator course is doing, only to find out that they're living the best business life ever. They're all in their Rolls Royces, going to the Gherkin after flogging a little bit of sellotape. And that just makes you feel worse. The good news is, most of that is rubbish. Nobody's going to post their losses on LinkedIn. Nobody's going to make a reel about them making their staff unemployed and kicking them out of the building. So don't fall for it. And it's at this point of growth, it's at this point where maybe your self-worth is starting to be diminished. You really do need to mind your business. Focus on what you do. Focus on what you're doing well. Focus on what you set out to do. And yeah, take all the advice from the professionals, but it's up to you what you do with that advice. Nobody should be making you do something that makes you feel uncomfortable. I'll give you another little sort of vignette. I was talking to a guy who worked in the health sector. He'd been going a couple of years and he was told he had to grow. Why? Because he was going from the incubator program to the accelerator program, and that's what you do. He didn't feel comfortable. He felt obliged. That was the term he used. I felt obliged because they'd been supporting me. He grew the business. It grew very quick, very unwieldy. He couldn't keep up. He burnt out. The whole thing went. Okay? Purely because he didn't have the confidence to stay true to his why and his values. Okay? Now, on the Mind Your Business program that we've developed, so we had our research, we understood the problem, we've sort of come up with a solution of how to try and help people. And the first thing that people learn when they come on the program is before they've even opened a book, before they've spoke to anybody, before they've done anything, haven't even took their coat off, and they learn one thing. they're not alone. Because every other person in that room is or has been in the situation that they've found themselves in. They either have struggled or they are struggling. And that's really sort of, for some people, as somebody, I've got a quote from one of the people off the course from the last one, it was life-changing to realise that they weren't alone and existing in a vacuum. So what does the programme do? Well, over a series of sessions, we start off looking at self-awareness, getting people to hold a mirror up to themselves and their business and identify, what was their why? How have things changed? Why have things changed? We then look at the resources that people have got. This is more about what you have got rather than what you haven't got. It's about focusing on what you do well, back to strengths, playing to your strengths and acknowledging that there are some things you will just never be able to do, no matter how many classes and webinars you go to. We look at the KPIs and what people are being judged on. What does success look like? Because success looks very different to different people. But very often we are pressured into being successful to what somebody else thinks it looks like rather than what we feel comfortable with. We then do a lot of work on building resilience and building confidence. And the idea is that at the end of the programme, people have an individual plan that they can then take forward and mind their business, and hopefully it will inspire them to keep going at that point where actually the easy thing to do is just call it a day and pack it in. So hopefully we can do that, improve that confidence and improve that resilience. To me, this is about working with the people and their business, and I say and rather than or. So rather than that traditional, there's something that will make you well, there's something that you can do for your business, what we do is try and blend it all together, acknowledging that they are one and the same thing. So the future, what does the future hold for Mind Your Business? We could just sit back and sort of rest in our laurels, but next week we're going to launch our Train the Trainer programme. So some of the best people that attend the core training programme will be, can apply to come and sort of join us and deliver the core programme. And that way we can hopefully expand our reach, get the information out there, because it is important stuff that people need to know. Born of research, we're going to continue supporting research. So we're working with Pablo and his teams on the neurodivergent programme and James and doing some of that to try and keep involved in research. We've also got a programme that we run for MBA courses at universities, and we're working with schools and colleges to try and develop entrepreneurial skills in young people. So we're trying to make sure that having come from research, we can now have as big an impact as possible in the community and across the region. So to summarise, remember, in most cases, the business and the business owner are one and the same thing. When one is impacted, it inevitably has an impact on the other. When one is well, the other one's well. Try and stay true to your values. Think about your why. And if you find yourself being forced or pushed off your values, have the confidence to say no. It's all right to say no sometimes. And for any budding entrepreneurs out there or future business owners, good luck. It's a hell of a ride. But hold on, you'll be all right. Jenny, that's me done.